It is time for Top of the Heap. The Mets picked their new manager, but there's still a lot to be decided on the field. So Dan and I have narrowed down our amazing wish list to 3 players the Mets need to pursue and bring aboard this offseason. Dan, age before beauty, so you go first.
Oh, John, many thanks. All right, here you go. I'll give you 3 guys here. We'll start in reverse order. Number 3, Lorenzo Cain. Won a World Series a couple of years ago, of course, with the Kansas City Royals. Met fans familiar with him. They need a center fielder. Juan Lagares, God love him, but you know what? He can never stay on the field. I know that Lorenzo Cain is on the wrong side of 30. I get that. Speed plays a factor into his game, so you worry about the legs maybe going as a guy gets older. I wouldn't particularly go more than 3 years on a contract, but I think he would be a very valuable addition for them. So when Michael Conforto comes back healthy, fingers crossed, you play him in right field, then you have your outfield set for the next couple of seasons. Number 2, I'm going to go with Jason Vargas, who had a cup of coffee as a Met, remember, in a previous life. Had a really strong season last year for the Royals, won 18 games. And what this Mets rotation needs, given all the injury uncertainties with the young guys, they need an innings eater. They need a guy that's going to take the ball every 5 days, and I think Vargas can be effective in that role. He's about 50 years younger than Bartolo Colon, so we don't have to worry about that. They need the veteran, and remember, he worked under new pitching coach Dave Eiland last couple of years in Kansas City, so the relationship is there. The number 1 top of the heap wish list that I think the Mets should pursue here in the offseason, Wade Davis. Going to cost you a lot of money. These big-time closers command a lot, i.e. Aroldis Chapman. And look, I know you say the Mets have a closer already in Familia. Ramos has closed games before. But getting a dominant lockdown guy like Wade Davis, okay, that just lengthens out your bullpen. Yes, you can have Familia and Ramos to close as need be, but imagine them coming into the game a little bit earlier than the 9th inning makes your bullpen that much more stronger. That is where I would throw a bunch of money to. It's a bullpen game now in Major League Baseball.
I respect your strategy, Dan, and clearly you love the Kansas City Royals because all those guys have something to do with them. Cain, I think, is going to command a hefty price tag. I don't know if you're going to get him.
You might be able to because he's a little bit older. He's not 25. He's 31.
Vargas, I like. I think that's a good pick, and I agree with you about the pitching coach. But your number 1 pick being Davis, I get extending the bullpen, but that happens to be a strength for the Mets right now. They have so many other holes to fill. They do. They have 2 closers, assuming Familia can come back, and Ramos. They have other young bullpen arms coming up. You're going to spend all your money shoring up the bullpen? What about the other 8 positions on the field?
I need a strong bullpen because there's so many questions with my starting rotation. If I don't have starters that can't get me past the 5th or 6th inning, I need to bring in my relievers. That's the way to go.
All right, Dan. Well, let me give you my 3 picks
Let's hear.
For Mets free agency, starting with my number 3, Jay Bruce. With all due respect to the DNL guys who just said there's no way they'd bring him back, I'd take Bruce back in a minute. 1, he proved he could play in New York. 2, he's a solid clubhouse guy. 3, was willing to play first base when needed. And 4, he can hit. He was the MVP of this team. I know what a bad year they had, but he basically carried this team. He was an all-star. I love his attitude. I put him out in the outfield until Conforto gets back. When he does, I let Conforto stay in center field. My outfield is Cespedes, Conforto, and Bruce. I like Jay Bruce a lot. Number 2, Alex Cobb, the right-hander from Tampa. The Rays did extend him a qualifying offer, which makes him a little more tricky to get, but all this guy does is pitch well. He had a low ERA last year. He went 180 innings. He's a solid. He's going to give you 6 innings, and he's not going to be that expensive. I think the Mets have a bunch of moves to make, and Cobb is a manageable salary to pull onto this team. Gives him a nice starter to complement DeGrom and Syndergaard. I love putting him in the rotation. My number 1 pick, you got to make a trade, but I would get Dee Gordon. I think he solves a slew of problems for the New York Mets. Number 1, he's a 300 hitter. Number 2, he's a leadoff man, which they haven't had in years. Number 3, he could steal bases. Number 4, he could play a great defensive second base. And number 5, his contract right now, $339, it's manageable. This is a guy who I think could sit right at the top of the lineup, get it started for the New York Mets. I love Dee Gordon. I think he would be the perfect fit. And if I had to spend the money, I don't think it's going to cost you that much to get Dee Gordon away from the Marlins and put him atop of the order.
I love the Dee Gordon pick. Love it. Speed. You have your leadoff hitter, play second base for you. The contract, like you said, not too bad. Prohibitive, though, for the Marlins. If you call Derek Jeter, if you're Sandy Alderson, and says, Derek, I'll give you Steven Matz for Dee Gordon, what do you think?
If I'm Derek Jeter?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, look, they're trying to shed payroll, so I think they're going to be incentivized to get rid of players like a Stanton and a Gordon. They're going to want a king's ransom for Stanton. Gordon is not going to be the same.
That's what I mean. You might be able to get him for Mets. Talented but injury-prone. I like Alex Cobb a lot. Bruce kind of cooled on him a little bit. It's almost like running in place.
Why is everybody cooled on
Because
Bruce?
it's almost like you're going back to where you were last year, and things really didn't work out that great for you.
But he wasn't the problem last year.
I know he wasn't the problem, but he didn't make him that much better either.
Well, he also gives you the flexibility to play first base if Dom Smith doesn't work out.
Another question they have to get solved.